The Danielson Framework for Teaching is the chosen framework for all educators in the state of Illinois. While the framework itself is not designed to be evaluative, its components are designed to identify what a teacher needs to be doing so that students are learning, and therefore contributes to what is observed and documented throughout an evaluation process. The Framework for Teaching was developed by Charlotte Danielson to promote clear and meaningful conversations about effective teaching practices. In many ways, it was the first of its kind and has stood the test of time.
Any evaluation system that assesses teacher practice has to be based on some definition of practice. And so a district or a state has to decide how it's going to define good teaching for the purpose of evaluation. They have choices, of course. My personal favorite is the Framework for Teaching, naturally. And I think there are good reasons for people to select it. First of all, it's validated. High levels of teacher performance on it do predict student learning, high levels of student learning. The framework also makes good common sense, and teachers resonate with it because it reflects what they know. It reflects the wisdom of practice. It's not something esoteric and odd. It just is written down in, I think, clear language. It is written down what they know, and for the most part, what they do. But then, because the rubrics are there, most people, when they look at the rubric, most teachers, when they look at it, they can't help themselves. They sort of find themselves. Well, where am I on this continuum? And then their eye tends to drift to the right, and they think, oh, I could do that. I just never thought about it. And so just the existence of it serves an educative purpose also, because then teachers start doing essentially some sort of self-assessment with it and thinking about their own practice. And then when you combine that with conversation, that really yields a lot of professional learning.
The Framework for Teaching identifies 4 domains that together represent the complex work of teaching. In the evaluation process, evidence is collected to demonstrate a teacher's mastery of attributes within each of these 4 domains. Evidence of the Danielson framework may be collected throughout the evaluation process. Evidence of Domain 1 is collected during the pre-conference to a formal observation. An evaluator seeks to observe how the educator is planning. Domain 1 is only given a formal rating in a formal observation, but will impact Domains 2 and 3 in an informal observation as well. Evidence of Domain 2 is collected when the evaluator sits in the classroom and observes. An evaluator seeks to interpret the feel of a classroom and how the classroom functions. This domain is not only about behavior management, it is also about the extent that the educator has created a positive learning environment for all students. Evidence of Domain 3 is also collected when the evaluator sits in the classroom and observes. Component 3C, Engaging Students in Learning, is considered the heart of the framework and is focused on the intellectual, not compliance, engagement of the students. This domain focuses on the teaching and learning that is happening in the classroom and often reflects aspects of Domain 1 as well. Evidence of Domain 4 is gathered during a post-conference. An evaluator seeks to observe the educator's ability to accurately reflect on their professional practice and identify steps to learn and grow as a professional. Domain 4 is only given a formal rating in a formal observation. There may be components that are not observed. These would not be rated or counted against the staff member being evaluated. The staff member is not responsible for providing evidence in each component in order to receive an excellent rating. He or she would receive the rating based on the components that were observed.
Here's the bottom line. Learning is done by the learner through an active intellectual process. So if you, the principal, are doing all the work and I'm completely passive, of course I'm not going to learn from that. Which is why then any observation process has to involve the teacher in an active role if we want to promote learning. And we have to want to promote learning, because otherwise nobody will get, I mean, if all we've done 3 years from now is gotten better at judging teachers and haven't helped anybody get better, people are going to wonder, what on earth did we spend all that money for? And I really am a little bit nervous about that. Fortunately, we know how to promote teacher learning, and teachers are eager for it themselves, and they're good at it. That's not the issue, but it's setting up the systems that will allow it to flourish. So let me just say a couple words here, and then I'll let Sarah tell you her wonderful research results. The framework for teaching, let me say a couple things here about it. Not only is it grounded in those assumptions, but it also, I would not want you to think that I think that because these aspects of teaching are listed separately and they're described separately, I wouldn't want anybody to think that I think that teachers do them separately. I know better than that. It's all very intertwined. And by the way, an interesting way to illustrate that is to pick any one. Like, for example, questioning and discussion techniques. And ask yourself, if a teacher were really good at that, what else would that same teacher have to be good at also in order to be good at that? They'd have to know their content, right? They'd have to know their students. What's an appropriately challenging question? They'd have to have clear outcomes. What do I want kids to learn from this discussion? They'd have to have some things over in domain 2 about a safe environment to take risks, and do you raise your hands or do you not? And so I'm sure you get the idea. So then you might say, well, why do we list them out separately then if it's all so entangled? And I'd like to offer you an analogy of a theater in the round. Think of a theater in the round, right? You've got the play in the middle. Now, think of the play, the lesson like the play. Now, this is a theater in the round, so the audience is sitting all around. Because the audience is sitting all around, the lights have to come from all directions. I think of these things like the lights. Here's a lesson, but let's just focus on the interactions, on the procedures, on the questioning. And when you think of it that way, this framework then becomes an analytic tool. And in a sense, that's all it is. It's an analytic tool to understand teaching. And in that way, it's useful for anybody who's wanting to understand and improve practice.
To learn more about the Danielson Framework for Teaching, start a discussion with your PLC, grab a copy of the book, or tour the evaluation resources on the RPS 205 staff portal. And of course, consult your principal and/or evaluator.